The INOV-8 Bare XF, or should we say Bare AF? Ah, it's so cringe. Is that really going to be the call to action that gets you to stick around for this full review? So 3 things to like about this model. Number 1, we have a wider toe box in the shoe compared to the prior model, the Bare XF 210 V3. So that model has a lot of attention in the lifting community. A lot of folks love that shoe, but a constant gripe with that model is that the toe box was a little bit too tapered. In the Bare XF, we now had that more anatomical toe box. It's a little bit wider, and the upper is a little bit more relaxed, so you get a wider fit with this shoe. So if the Bare XF 210 V3 was a little bit too narrow for you, I think you will like the toe box change in the Bare XF. The second thing to like with this model is it's been exceptional for both cross training and lifting. So if you want that barefoot shoe for doing a little bit of everything in the gym, I think this can be a really solid option to look into. The sole feels pretty dang durable as well, so I think they will fare pretty well for CrossFit workouts. You do have a little bit of a wrap here on the lateral and medial side of the midfoot for rope climbs, and you have a synthetic overlay covering the toe box to resist any abrasion resistance. So in the context of being a good do-it-all gym shoe, I think the Bare XF will excel for most folks. And on top of that, you get a lot of ground feel with this shoe, and it's very flexible. So for lifting, I have really enjoyed them for my lower body days. The third thing to like about this model is you have the boomerang footbed. So with this shoe, while the internal construction isn't finished, if you take the insole out, you do have INOV-8's boomerang footbed. I personally love this feature. Look, it's a little bit thicker than other insoles, so if you do want to get close to the ground, you can swap in other barefoot shoe insoles into the shoe to do so. But with this insole here, you get a little bit of cushion. So I almost feel like for beginners transitioning to barefoot shoes and wanting a shoe for lifting and some casual wear, the boomerang footbed can be an awesome perk. And then also, I just think it's very comfortable. It gives this shoe a little bit more range because I don't always want to wear a barefoot shoe with a super minimalist stack height if I'm wearing them for a longer duration. So I like the variety there. And yes, if I do want to get close to the ground, I will swap in insoles from models like my Vivo barefoot shoes or even Zero shoes. Is it a perfect fit? No, but it will get the job done if you want as much ground feel as possible in the shoe. Overall, the Bare XF has been exceptionally solid, but now let's talk about a couple of cons I could see folks having with this shoe. So for the most part, I honestly have felt like the Bare XF has performed exceptionally well, but there are 2 niche little cons I have with the shoe. Number 1, the laces, they run a little bit long, so if you do have a narrower foot or you have to crank the shoe really tight for your training sessions, expect the laces to run a little bit long. You're gonna have to probably double knot them, double bunny ear them, or just kind of tuck them. That's gonna be an issue. I think that's only gonna plague a couple of folks in this model. Like, this is how I typically wear this shoe, and as you can see, like, I would prefer these be a little bit shorter, but it's honestly not the biggest deal, I guess. The second con that I could see folks having with this shoe is if you don't like limb shoes because they have kind of rounded soles, this would be something to consider with this shoe. While it is pretty dang flat for lifting and it's gonna work for most folks, it does have a little bit of that like rounded sole feel to it. So if you don't like shoes with that rounded sole and you want something much flatter that is a barefoot shoe, look into models like the Advances Apex Power 1.5 or the Aerolux Barefoot from 100. Those are both fantastic options that are gonna give you a flatter feel when training. Again, that's gonna be super niche and it's not gonna be something that I think bothers everybody, but I know there are folks out there who just want that very, very flat sole for their barefoot shoe for lifting specific purposes. To discuss the performance of the INOV-8 Bare XF, I'm gonna break this section into a few different parts. I'll discuss this shoe's performance for lifting, cross training, short runs, and daily wear. In the context of lifting, this shoe has done an exceptional job. So 3 things that I like with this shoe for lifting is number 1, it gives you enough cushion, I think, to give you a little bit of variety regarding how much impact you're gonna be having through the feet when you are lifting. So for example, if I'm doing cleans and I don't necessarily want to have as much impact on my feet, I have been really enjoying the shoe because it gives you a little bit more cushion than models like the Tolos Archetype 2.0 and the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3. It's just been a nice option for some variety there. The second reason why I like this shoe for lifting is with the outsole tread and the flexibility and articulation of this shoe, you get a nice level of ground feel and grip for your lifting needs. So whether I was on turf, rubber gym floors, or wooden platforms, I didn't have grip issues with this model's outsole. I also like that you have the MetaFlex feature up here. It makes this shoe really easy to break in, and honestly, I don't think you're gonna have toe break issues in this model. So for example, when doing lunges and split squats, models like the Primus Lite Knit from Vivo Barefoot, like the toe break can be pretty dang aggressive. In this shoe, I don't think that's gonna be a problem for most folks, and I really appreciate that because it also adds to this shoe's flexibility and how comfortable it feels out of the box. The third reason why I like this shoe for lifting is it feels very sock-like. And so if you want a shoe that feels very athletic for different types of lifting, so whether that be power or just general strength and hypertrophy workouts, the shoe is gonna work exceptionally well. Now in the context context of cross training and CrossFit, I've also really liked this shoe. The upper breathes pretty dang well. This is a shoe that I've been rocking with or without socks, and they feel really good. The tongue security is decent. The tongue is gusseted. It will slide from time to time, but if you crank the laces tight enough, that shouldn't really be an issue. And then also with the boomerang footbed, once again, the shoe gives you a little bit more cushion for plyometrics and different types of training in that realm. For CrossFit, I haven't used this shoe a ton in that vertical, but I have used them for a couple of workouts and they've done pretty dang well. If I was gonna choose a Barefoot shoe for CrossFit, I would either go with these or the Modus Strength from Vivo Barefoot. I think those two are kind of leading the pack regarding both function, but then also looking pretty good as well. The Zero Shoes 360 also works in that vertical, but they can have some durability issues on the heel and they just look kind of chonky, so they're not necessarily my favorites there, but the Bare XF I think should be a good option if that's something you need this shoe for. When it comes to short runs, this model has done a pretty good job. The boomerang footbed gives you a little bit more cushion, which I appreciate, and with this grippy outsole, you should be fine running on different surfaces, and if you're planning to run outdoors in this shoe, I don't think they're gonna break down too quickly with you, and the upper breathes pretty well as well, so they kind of remind me of like that Zero Shoes Zelen feel or the HFS2 with how they're kind of hybrid-esque in their construction with the breathability of the upper, but then also the flexibility and articulation of the sole for lifting purposes. When it comes to daily wear, I've liked the Bare XF too. It's not the most aesthetic shoe. Some of the colorways look better than others. For example, I'm honestly not super stoked on my gray colorway here. It's kind of hard to match with different outfits, but I do like some of the other colorways. So if you do want that Barefoot shoe for daily wear, I don't think comfort or breathability will be an issue, but the overall appearance of the shoe could be something that could be a drawback. This isn't necessarily going to be the best looking Barefoot shoe on the market. For example, like if I'm dressing up, I'm going to go with like an Icarus Gen 2 or a Tolos Archetype 2.0. I think those shoes are a little bit easier to dress up and look more casual versus the Bare XF, which has a much more sporty feel and vibe to it. When it comes to the price of the Bare XF, you can expect to pay $120. Compared to other Barefoot shoes for training, this price point I think is pretty dang fair for what this shoe offers. It feels a little bit more premium, it breathes well, it's perfect for lifting, but if you do want to save a little bit of money, I believe the Bare XF 210 V3s are on sale, like major sales, like $60. So if you don't necessarily need the wider toe box of the shoe and you want to save monies, go with the Bare XF 210 V3. It's a stellar shoe as well, and you're going to be spending around 60 to 70 USD after all is said and done with tax. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Jake. I buy all of the products I review on this channel. The opinions are of my own. I'm not swayed by different companies, and if you subscribe to the channel, it really does help. But that said, back to the review. All right, so now to answer the question, who should buy the INOV-8 Bare XF? So if you are somebody that needs a Barefoot shoe for cross training, CrossFit, and lifting, I think that Bare XF is gonna be a good option for your needs. The second context is if you like Barefoot shoes that have a very sock-like feel, or if you just like training without socks at times or with socks, this can be a great option to look into. The upper is super comfortable and there's not a lot of aggressive toe break in this shoe like other models that have that TPU wrap that wraps the entirety of the forefoot. The third context is if you're somebody that's newer to Barefoot shoes and you want that Barefoot shoe for some daily wear and then also training, I think this can be a great option to look into. It's going to give you a nice cushion with the boomerang footbed, but it's also not going to be as thick like models from Limbs. So it does walk that kind of in-between ground between giving you a little bit more ground feel, but not being so close to the ground where it could be a turnoff for people who are brand new to Barefoot shoes. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? Number one, if you're somebody that wants a shoe that you can dress up and then also train in, this might not be the best option for you. And then number two, if you're somebody that once again likes that very flat sole for lifting specifically, or if you just want a shoe for like deadlifts, for example, you might want to look into options that are a little bit more dialed compared to the Bare XF for that specific need. When it comes to the sizing and fit of the Bare XF, I think most lifters and athletes should be safe going true to size in this model. I wear a 10 in all of my Barefoot shoes. I have a normal arch and a foot width that hovers between like an E and double E width foot, depending on the company. And this model fits really true for my needs, whether I'm wearing socks or without socks. So if you currently wear like a Vivo Barefoot Zero Shoes model or a Tolos, go with the same size in the INOV-8 Bare XF as you would with those shoes. All right, so now let's cover the weight, heel, toe drop, and insole in the Bare XF. For my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 7.85 ounces. The heel to toe drop of this shoe is 0 millimeters. And then once again, you have the boomerang footbed in this shoe and the internal construction is not finished. All right, now let's break down the construction of the Bare XF. Up here on the toe box, you have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. It is pretty thin. And then you also have a synthetic overlay around the toe box. What I like about this overlay is that it doesn't come into the creasing of the toe box. So the shoe feels very comfortable when you break it in. Sometimes that TPU can wrap too far and you'll have that awkward lateral creasing of the toe box. That's not really an issue in this shoe whatsoever. You have a mesh upper that runs the entirety of this shoe, some synthetic overlays here on the lateral and medial side, and then around here in the boot. And the boot does have a little bit of a cup or a structure to it, so it's not completely flimsy back here around the boot. Looking at the midfoot, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 core eyelets that go up with a 6 back here for lace lock. The tongue is gusseted, and you do have an additional loop here for security, and the tongue has a nice padded mesh material to it. It feels pretty comfortable from its first wear. Once again, the laces are a little bit long in this shoe, especially if you have to crank them tight. And then you have some INOV-8 branding here on the lateral side of the heel, and then back here on the boot as well. Looking at the sole of the shoe, or the outsole for that matter, you have a full rubber outsole, you have some Metaflex up here in the forefoot, and then once again, it does kind of have this rounded construction to it, but I like that it wraps up the lateral and medial side because it does give you a little bit of additional durability for CrossFit workouts. Once again, you do have that boomerang footbed in this shoe. It's a little bit thicker than what you get in other models, which I kind of like because it gives you a little bit of variety, and the internal construction isn't finished in this model. But if you have additional questions on the construction of this shoe, drop a comment down below. All right guys, that wraps up my review of the INOV-8 Bare XF. Honestly, this is a pretty stellar shoe, and I like the tweaks that INOV-8 made on this model. I think it's going to fit a wider range of foot anatomies, and it's going to work for a lot of different things in the gym. If you have additional questions on this shoe, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.